Alien Nations Celebrate Human Holidays Complete Story. Part 1. Ambassador stood in the corridor of station and tried to understand what had happened to the humans. Yesterday, the station looked normal. Today, it looked like someone had declared war on good taste and sanity had lost. Orange vegetables with faces carved into them sat in every window. Fake spider webs covered doorways. Humans walked past wearing the strangest clothes had ever seen. One human wore a white sheet with holes cut in it. Another had painted their face green and attached fake bolts to their neck. A small human child ran past dressed as what appeared to be a textile cleaning device. Translation implant identified the holiday as Halloween. The database entry made no sense. Humans dressed in costumes knocked on doors and demanded sugar-based foods from strangers. There was no logical purpose, no ritual significance that could identify, no productivity benefit. It was pure chaos. Ambassador, may I speak with you? The voice belonged to Commander, head of security detail. Was a decorated warrior, veteran of 3 campaigns, and had never asked permission for anything in his life. Yes, Commander. Shifted his weight from foot to foot. His third arm twitched nervously. The human children invited me to participate in trick-or-treating. I would like permission to accompany them. Stared, you want to collect candy from strangers. The human child explained that I would make an excellent space monster and would not need a costume, seemed almost embarrassed. It sounds enjoyable. Before could respond, 3 more security officers appeared, all making similar requests. Within an hour, half the population on the station had joined the Halloween festivities. Watched in disbelief as civilians, known throughout the galaxy for their emotional control and logical thinking, ran giggling through the corridors in improvised costumes. Dr. Sarah found slumped against a wall, holding a carved pumpkin someone had given them. You look confused, Sarah said, smiling. Your holiday has infected my people, said. They are acting irrationally. They are wasting time. They are eating excessive amounts of sugar, and they appear to be experiencing something my translation implant identifies as fun. Is that a problem? Looked at the pumpkin. Someone had carved a smiling face into it. The face seemed to mock everything understood about proper behavior. When did your people last have fun together? We have recreational periods, scheduled relaxation, approved entertainment. That's not what I asked. Sarah sat down next to. When did you last do something silly just because it made you happy? When did you last laugh with your neighbors for no reason? Had no answer. Halloween isn't about productivity, Sarah continued. It's about connection. It's about letting go for one night and just enjoying each other. Watch your people, Ambassador. Really watch them. Did watch. Commander returned an hour later with a bag full of candy and a smile that showed all his teeth. 2 engineers who had barely spoken to each other were comparing costumes and laughing. A group of children who had seemed anxious and isolated were running together, playing games, shouting with joy. The station's productivity metrics appeared once. They had expected a significant decline during the Halloween celebration. Instead, the numbers showed a slight increase. More importantly, the social cohesion index had jumped 20%. Workplace satisfaction was up. Conflict reports were down. This makes no sense, muttered. It makes perfect sense, Sarah said. You've been measuring the wrong things. You measure productivity and efficiency and output, but you don't measure happiness. You don't measure community. You don't measure whether people feel connected to each other. Those things are not measurable. Sure they are. You're looking at the measurements right now. Sarah pointed at those numbers show what happens when people feel good, when they feel like they belong, when they have something to look forward to and share together. Watched a child show their candy collection to their parent. The parent's face showed something had never seen before. Not just approval or acknowledgement, but genuine delight. Pure happiness at seeing their child happy. How many of these holidays do humans have? Asked. Sarah laughed. Depends on who you ask. Major ones, maybe a dozen. But there are cultural holidays, religious holidays, regional holidays, made-up holidays. We'll celebrate almost anything. That seems excessive. Does it? Look around, Ambassador. Your people just had more fun in 3 hours than they've had in 3 months. Tell me that's excessive. The next day, filed a report to the High Command. The report detailed the Halloween incident, the unexpected social benefits, and the strange human concept of celebrating for celebration's sake. Expected skepticism or dismissal. Instead, the response came within hours. Request full documentation of all human holidays and their social effects. The Galactic Council received its expanded report 2 weeks later. The Council had existed for 12,000 years. Its member species had built empires, developed faster-than-light travel, and mapped half the galaxy. But they had never encountered anything quite like human holidays. Council member of the mechanized worlds reviewed the data 3 times. This cannot be correct. These humans stop working, consume resources, and engage in purposeless activities, and their society functions better because of it. The correlation is undeniable, reported via hologram. We have tested this ourselves. We designated one day as Gratitude Gathering Day, based on the human holiday called Thanksgiving. Workers were encouraged to share food and express appreciation for their colleagues. Productivity increased by 12% for the following week. Worker retention improved. Stress-related incidents decreased by 30%. But why? His mechanical voice carried genuine confusion. Why does illogical celebration improve logical outcomes? A human observer stood at the back of the council chamber. Dr. Humanities Cultural had been invited to provide context. He stepped forward. If I may, waited for permission to speak. You're asking the wrong question. You're asking why celebration helps productivity. But celebration isn't for productivity. Productivity is a side effect of healthy, happy communities. You've been optimizing for the side effect and ignoring the cause. Explain, commanded. Imagine you're a machine, began. You run constantly, no breaks, maximum efficiency. How long until you break down? Machines require maintenance. Exactly. Now imagine you're a thinking, feeling being. You work constantly, no breaks, maximum efficiency. How long until you break down? Looked around the chamber. Holidays are maintenance. They're how we take care of each other. They give us something to look forward to, something to plan together, something to remember fondly. They build the social bonds that make communities strong. This is highly irregular, another council member said, but they didn't sound dismissive. They sounded curious. I propose an experiment, said. We shall designate 3 species for holiday implementation trials. They will adopt selected human holidays and report outcomes. If the results match Ambassador's findings, we will consider broader implementation. The council voted. The measure passed unanimously. Within a month, 3 species had volunteered for the trial: the militaristic empire, the logical collective, and the aquatic commonwealth. Each chose different holidays to implement based on their cultural needs. Sarah, now promoted to Director of Cultural Exchange, reviewed the volunteer list and smiled. This is going to be interesting, she said. Standing beside her felt something unfamiliar. They had celebrated 3 more human holidays since Halloween. Each time that strange feeling grew stronger. Translation implant finally identified it: anticipation. Your holidays are spreading, said. Not our holidays, Sarah corrected. The galaxy's holidays. You just needed someone to show you it was okay to celebrate. Across the galaxy, 3 very different civilizations prepared for their first human-style holidays. They had no idea what they were about to experience. They couldn't predict how it would change them. But they were about to find out. Part 2. General of the Empire had conquered 14 worlds, commanded a fleet of 300 warships, and had never once questioned the purpose of military readiness. They existed in a state of constant preparation. Every citizen trained for war. Every resource supported the military. Every moment served the mission of defending space from threats that had not materialized in 300 years. Then a human diplomat suggested to celebrate Thanksgiving. "Let me understand this correctly," said, reviewing the holiday documentation. "We stop all military exercises, we prepare food, we gather with others, and we express gratitude." "That's the basics," Ambassador confirmed. "It's about acknowledging what you have and who you share it with." "This serves what strategic purpose?" "Does everything need a strategic purpose, General?" Had no response to that. In culture, everything served a purpose. Efficiency was sacred. Rest itself was justified only as preparation for future action. The idea of doing something simply to acknowledge goodness seemed alien. But the Galactic Council had mandated this experiment and followed orders. The first Thanksgiving was scheduled for the following month. Every base, every ship, every outpost would participate simultaneously. The preparation confused everyone. Soldiers accustomed to drilling and training instead learned to cook. Officers accustomed to issuing orders instead wrote lists of things they appreciated. The entire empire slowed down to prepare for a single day of gratitude. The day arrived, sat at a long table with their command staff. Food covered every surface, prepared by soldiers who had consulted human recipes and improvised with ingredients. Nobody quite knew what to do. "Perhaps we should begin," said awkwardly. "I am told we should share what we are grateful for." Silence. Warriors did not discuss feelings. They discussed tactics, strategies, supply lines, not gratitude. Finally, Commander spoke. "I am grateful for my crew, not because they are efficient, though they are, not because they follow orders, though they do. I am grateful because I trust them, because when I am uncertain they support me, because they make me better than I am alone." The admission hung in the air. Other officers shifted uncomfortably. Then another spoke, and another. Around the table, hardened warriors began sharing appreciation for each other in ways they never had before. Felt something crack inside their chest. Not pain, but a release. For years had led through strength and distance. But sitting at this table, hearing these admissions, realized something. Their people were not just soldiers. They were individuals who trusted each other, supported each other, cared for each other. "I am grateful," said quietly, "for leading people worth protecting. We trained to defend the empire. Today I remember why that matters. Not because of territory or resources, because of this, because of us." The feast that followed changed everything. Officers who had maintained professional distance laughed together. Soldiers who had seen each other only as unit members discovered shared interests. The rigid hierarchy that defined society softened just enough to let connection through. The next morning, reviewed the after-action reports expecting to find reduced readiness and decreased efficiency. Instead, every base reported improved morale. Every commander noted better cooperation between units. Combat simulation scores had increased. Sent a message to the Galactic Council. The experiment was successful. Request permission to make Thanksgiving an annual holiday. Halfway across the galaxy, the collective confronted a different challenge. There were beings of crystalline structure who communicated through mathematical harmonies. They understood logic perfectly. Emotion baffled them. So when humans suggested to celebrate Valentine's Day, the response was immediate and negative. "This holiday commercializes affection," Resonance Pattern 7 Alpha stated at the council meeting. "It mandates gift-giving. It reduces complex emotional bonds to gestures. It is illogical." "Which is precisely why we should try it," Resonance Pattern 3 Gamma countered. "We have optimized our society for logical efficiency. Yet our studies of humanity show that their illogical emotional connections produce innovative thinking we lack. Perhaps we should experiment with their methods. The debate lasted 3 cycles. Finally, they agreed to a modified Valentine's Day called Resonance Day. Would exchange tokens of appreciation with others whose frequency resonated with their own. The gift should acknowledge connection, not purchase it. Resonance Pattern 7 Alpha participated reluctantly. They crafted a small crystal sculpture for Resonance Pattern 4 Delta, a colleague who had helped them solve a particularly difficult mathematical proof. The sculpture captured the frequency pattern of their collaborative work together. When 7 Alpha presented the gift, 4 Delta's crystalline structure rang with an unusual harmonic. The translation identified it as pleased surprise. "I did not know you valued our work together," 4 Delta said. "I had not previously considered expressing that value," 7 Alpha admitted. "This holiday forced me to acknowledge what I normally take for granted." Across the collective, similar exchanges occurred. Scientists who had collaborated for years discovered they meant more to each other than just useful colleagues. Teachers recognized students with gifts acknowledging their unique perspectives. Even the most logically minded found themselves experiencing something their language had no words for. They created a new mathematical notation to describe it, the resonance coefficient, measuring the strength of emotional bonds between individuals. What they discovered shocked them. With higher resonance coefficients produced more creative work. They solved problems faster. They generated more novel ideas. The logical conclusion was illogical. Emotions made them better thinkers. "We have been optimizing for the wrong variables," 3 Gamma announced at the next council meeting. "We measured intelligence, efficiency, and logical consistency. We never measured connection, appreciation, or joy. The humans have been trying to tell us this. Happiness is not opposed to productivity. It enables it." Resonance Day became permanent. They even expanded it, creating additional holidays celebrating different types of connection. Collaboration Day, Mentorship Day, Discovery Day. Each one acknowledging that their crystalline minds worked better when their crystalline hearts were engaged. The experience perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Living in deep-sea habitats scattered across their ocean world that had always been isolated. Each city-state operated independently. Communication happened, but connection did not. The human holiday that changed everything was New Year's Eve. Ambassador explained the concept to the council. At a specific moment, every human on Earth would celebrate simultaneously. Different time zones meant the celebration rolled around the planet, but the idea was universal, a shared moment of reflection and renewal. "We have never done anything simultaneously across all territories," Council Member Thresh admitted. "Our cities are too isolated, our communications too limited." "That's exactly why you should try," said. "You need something that connects all together, something that reminds you that you're one people, not just separate cities." The preparation took months. Each city created festivities appropriate to their local culture. But all agreed on one element. At the moment of the new year, every would surface and release a bioluminescent marker into the water. From the surface, the planet would glow with synchronized light. The night arrived. Across the planet prepared. As the designated moment approached, millions of rose threw their ocean toward the surface. Many had never been this high before. The pressure change was uncomfortable. The effort was significant. But when the moment came and millions of lights bloomed simultaneously across the dark ocean, something shifted in the consciousness. They were not separate anymore. They were one people, sharing one moment, connected by something deeper than communication lines or trade agreements. Thresh watched the lights from a surface platform and felt something they had no word for. The isolation that had defined existence seemed suddenly unnecessary. They were alone together, but they did not have to be alone at all. The next morning, the council convened an emergency session. The topic: permanent integration of the scattered city-states into a unified nation. The motion passed unanimously. One holiday, Thresh marveled. One shared celebration, and centuries of isolation ended. Not just one holiday, another council member corrected. The first holiday. Now we know what connection feels like. We will not give that up. The Galactic Council received 3 reports, 3 different species, 3 different holidays, 3 unanimous conclusions. Human holidays worked. Within a year, 17 more species had requested cultural exchange programs. Within 5 years, human holidays had spread to every corner of explored space. Each species adapted the holidays to their needs, their cultures, their values. But the core remained: dedicated time for connection, celebration, and community. Sarah stood in her office, reviewing requests from 50 different species, all wanting to understand more human holidays. Halloween, Christmas, Holi, Diwali, Eid, Hanukkah, Lunar New Year. Each one offering something different, something needed. "We're not spreading holidays," she told her assistant. "We're giving permission. Permission to stop. Permission to celebrate. Permission to acknowledge that life is about more than surviving. It's about having reasons to be glad you're alive." But not everyone agreed, and the resistance was about to begin. Part 3. The hierarchy of Tal had watched the holiday phenomenon spread across the galaxy with growing alarm. For 10,000 years, Tal civilization had endured through rigid order, controlled emotion, and unwavering tradition. They had outlasted empires, survived catastrophes, and maintained stability when younger civilizations collapsed into chaos. Now humanity threatened all of that with colored paper and celebration. High Arbiter reviewed the reports with mounting concern. 23 species had adopted human holidays. Social metrics showed increased happiness, improved cooperation, and stronger communities. But saw something else in the data: disruption of established order, erosion of traditional hierarchies, and dangerous emotional liberation. The crisis point came when Tal workers, exposed to human cultural broadcasts, began demanding something called a weekend. "This is unacceptable," declared to the Tal Council. "Our workers perform their duties continuously, as they have for. Now they demand 2 days of rest every 7 days because humans take 2 days of rest. This is cultural contamination." The workers cite improved performance during their proposed work days. Another arbiter noted carefully: "Performance is not the issue. Stability is the issue." Pulled up more data. On worlds that have adopted human holidays, we see increased social mobility, questioning of traditional authority, and demands for personal time. These holidays are not harmless celebrations. They are vectors of chaos. The Tal Council agreed. A formal proposal was drafted for the Galactic Council: ban the adoption of human celebratory practices by non-human species, restrict human cultural exports, preserve the social order that had maintained galactic stability for thousands of years. The proposal shocked the galaxy. Species that had recently discovered the joy of celebration faced the possibility of having it taken away. The who now celebrated 6 different holidays annually issued a formal protest. They declared the ban mathematically illogical. They threatened to withdraw from the council entirely. The emergency council session was scheduled for 3 months away. Both sides prepared their arguments. The Tal gathered evidence of social disruption. Humanity and its allies gathered evidence of social improvement. Ambassador knew the data would not be enough. Numbers could be interpreted. Statistics could be spun. If humanity was going to win this argument, they needed something else. "We need to show them," she told her team. "Not tell them, show them what holidays actually do." The plan was ambitious and slightly ridiculous. On the day of the council session, every human embassy, every mixed species station, Every integrated colony would celebrate simultaneously. Not a human holiday, but a new one. First Contact Day, celebrating the moment humanity joined the galactic community. The Tau would see the celebrations. They would see what they wanted to ban. The day arrived. The Galactic Council chamber filled with representatives from 200 species. The Tau delegation sat in their designated section, faces impassive, certain of their rightness. High Arbiter began the presentation. The evidence was comprehensive. On 17 worlds, holiday adoption had preceded worker strikes. On 23 worlds, traditional hierarchies had weakened. On 41 worlds, citizens now demanded personal time, emotional expression, and reduced work hours. This is not progress, declared. This is decay. Civilizations require order. They require structure. They require citizens who understand their place and perform their duties. Human holidays undermine all of this. They teach beings to prioritize pleasure over purpose, individual happiness over collective stability, momentary joy over long-term survival. The chamber fell silent. The argument was powerful. Many species valued stability above all else. The idea of disrupting that stability for the sake of celebration seemed dangerous. Then Ambassador stood. She carried no data pad, no presentation, no formal arguments. She carried small wrapped packages. Before we continue, said, I'd like to share something. Today is First Contact Day, a new holiday celebrating the moment humanity joined the galactic community. In the spirit of this holiday, we've prepared a small gift for every council member. Assistants moved through the chamber distributing packages. The Tau delegation initially refused, but protocol required accepting gifts from fellow council members. Reluctantly, they took their packages. Please open them, encouraged. Council members unwrapped small items, chocolates, cookies, candied fruits, simple sweets from human culture. Some representatives tasted them immediately. Others examined them curiously. A few smiled. For the next 30 seconds, said, every being in this chamber experienced the same thing. You unwrapped a gift. You discovered something unexpected. Some of you shared with your neighbors. Some of you are probably thinking about taking some home to a friend or family member. That's what holidays do. They give us permission to stop, to connect, to remember we're not just functional units. We're communities. This proves nothing, said, though their voice carried less certainty. A pleasant moment does not justify social disruption. You're right, agreed. So let's look at what you call disruption. You say workers demanding weekends is a problem, but why do they want weekends? Because they've discovered they have lives outside their work. They have families they want to spend time with. They have interests they want to pursue. They have rest they need to take. You call that disruption. I call that remembering you're alive. Activated a holographic display showing scenes from across the galaxy. Families sharing Thanksgiving meals, exchanging Resonance Day gifts, cities glowing with New Year celebrations, children trick-or-treating, dozens of species, hundreds of worlds, millions of beings celebrating together. You see chaos, said. I see connection. You see lost productivity. I see sustainable communities. You see erosion of tradition. I see evolution of culture. Culture must be preserved, argued. Traditions exist because they work. They provide stability across generations. Your holidays disrupt that stability. Do they? Pulled up different data. The empire has existed in a state of constant military readiness for 300 years. In the year since they adopted Thanksgiving, they've experienced their lowest rate of psychological breakdown, their highest retention of trained personnel, and their best combat simulation scores. They're better warriors because they remember what they're fighting for. She changed the display. They optimized their society for pure logic. Since adopting Resonance Day, their rate of innovative discoveries has doubled. They're better scientists because they acknowledge that emotions enhance thinking rather than diminish it. Another change. They lived in isolation for centuries. One New Year's celebration and they unified into a single nation. They're stronger now, more stable, more capable of meeting challenges. These are temporary effects, insisted, but they sounded less convinced. Are they? Let me ask you something, High Arbiter. When did your people last feel joy? Not satisfaction at completing duty, not approval at meeting expectations. Joy, pure, simple happiness at being alive with others. Had no answer. Walked closer to the Tau delegation. Your civilization has lasted 10,000 years. That's impressive. But lasting isn't the same as living. You've survived, but have you thrived? Have your people known what it feels like to anticipate something wonderful, to share laughter with friends, to mark the passage of time with celebration rather than just endurance? We have purpose, said quietly. We have duty. And holidays don't take that away. They add to it. They give you reasons to be glad you're doing your duty. They create moments where purpose and joy meet. Around the chamber, representatives were talking to each other, sharing the sweets had distributed, comparing flavors. Even the Tau delegation had started conversing more warmly than usual. Gestured at the chamber. Look around, High Arbiter. Right now, council members who normally only communicate through formal protocols are sharing candy and laughing. We've been in session for 30 minutes, and you've seen more genuine connection than in your last dozen sessions combined. That's what holidays do. They create space for us to be more than our roles. Looked around. Their own delegation members were talking quietly, even smiling. One had offered a chocolate to a member of the delegation. The had accepted with a nod that seemed almost friendly. This is manipulation, said, but the protest sounded weak. No, said gently. This is demonstration. You wanted to ban holidays because you saw them as threats, but they're not threats. They're tools for building the kind of communities where beings want to live, not just where they can survive. The vote was called, returned to her seat uncertain. The Tal had raised legitimate concerns. Order mattered. Stability had value. Would the council choose celebration or control? The results appeared on displays throughout the chamber. The vote was not close. 200 species rejected the Tal proposal. Only the Tal themselves voted in favor. But something unexpected happened. As the results were announced, High Arbiter stood again. The council has spoken, said formally. The Tal accept this decision. However, I request permission to address a new topic. Granted, the council speaker said. The Tal have observed the effects of human holidays on galactic civilization. We acknowledge that our concerns about disruption may have been overstated. In the interest of better understanding this phenomenon, the Tal hierarchy proposes to implement an experimental holiday of our own design. We will call it Day of Understanding. On this day, Tal citizens will spend time experiencing life from another perspective, learning something outside their normal duties, and sharing that experience with their community. The chamber erupted in surprised conversation. The Tal, most traditional of species, proposing their own holiday. Approached after the session ended. That took courage, she said. That took observation, corrected. I watched this council chamber during your demonstration. I saw beings connect in ways that our formal protocols never achieve. I realized that the Tal have been so focused on preserving our civilization that we forgot to let our people enjoy it. You're not worried about chaos. I am terrified of chaos, admitted. But I am more terrified of discovering that we have survived for 10,000 years without ever truly living. If humans can teach the galaxy to celebrate, perhaps they can teach the Tal as well. The first day of understanding was scheduled for 6 months later. The Tal approached it with characteristic thoroughness, creating detailed guidelines, recommended activities, and structured sharing sessions. But when the day arrived, something unexpected happened. Tal citizens did not follow the guidelines. They went beyond them. Scientists tried art. Administrators tried cooking. Officials spent time with children, learning their perspectives. The structured sharing sessions became free-flowing conversations. The Tal discovered something they had not experienced in 10,000 years: spontaneous joy. High Arbiter participated by working a shift at a public garden, something they had never done despite overseeing environmental policy for decades. A young Tal gardener explained the intricacies of soil composition and root systems with passion that had never encountered in policy briefings. "You love this work," observed. "I do," the young Tal agreed. "I understand it is not important work, not like what you do, but it brings me happiness." "It is important work," said, understanding something for the first time. "You maintain beauty, you create growth, you care for living things. How is that not important?" The young Tal looked surprised. "I had not thought of it that way." Neither had, but kneeling in the soil, hands dirty, working alongside someone who loved what they did, realized that the Tal had created a hierarchy that valued some purposes over others. They had forgotten that all purposes mattered if they brought meaning to someone's life. That evening, filed a report recommending that Day of Understanding become an annual holiday. The recommendation passed unanimously. Within a year, the Day of Understanding had evolved. Tal citizens created variations: Day of Creativity, Day of Service, Day of Connection. Each one a chance to step outside normal roles and remember that they were more than their duties. Sarah, now retired from her position as Director of Cultural Exchange, watched the reports from her small apartment on Earth. Hundreds of species celebrating thousands of variations of human holidays. Each one adapted, modified, made their own. The galaxy had not adopted human culture. The galaxy had learned from human culture that celebration was okay, that joy mattered, that communities needed more than just function to thrive. A message appeared on her display. It was from High Arbiter. "Ambassador, the Tal are hosting their 10th Day of Understanding next month. We would be honored if you would attend. We wish to thank you for teaching us something we should have known all along. Civilization is not just about surviving together. It is about having reasons to be glad we do." Smiled and began composing her acceptance. Outside her window, she could see preparations beginning for Earth's celebration of Galactic Unity Day, a new holiday that every species now celebrated together. One day a year, the entire galaxy stopped and acknowledged what they had built together. Not an empire, not a system of control, but a community, a vast, diverse, sometimes chaotic community that had learned humanity's greatest lesson. Life was meant to be celebrated,